we good to go whenever? All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Nitya. I'm the founder of Capsule, and today we'll be talking about the wallet Endgame. So a bit about me, started my career in fintech, worked on the Celo protocol on stablecoin payments for quite some time, and then we started Capsule about a year and a half ago to really focus on solving this problem of self-custody in the context of really allowing blockchain interaction to feel much more similar to interaction with other forms of information or data on the internet. So let's maybe start with why we're here. It's been over 15 years since the Bitcoin white paper, and yet we're still here talking about key management. So why is this such a difficult problem? Crypto is very different, and blockchains as an interaction mechanism are very different in that there are really two apps responsible for most given transactions. dApps are tasked with reading data and proposing transactions, and wallets are, of course, a separate application tasked with actually writing a transaction, getting confirmation from the user, and propagating that along to the chain. This is very different from Web 2, of course, where in Web 2, if I want to tweet, like I did about being here, I can see my tweet, all the feed. I can construct a tweet, like compose it, then I can go ahead and write it, and then it shows up on everyone else's feed, and that only happened in one app. In contrast, of course, in Web 3, we have two different apps. But why? So the reason that we have wallets to begin with is because in order to actually sign a transaction, you need to have access to the private keys. And turns out there are a lot more places that we might want to propose a transaction from than places where we're comfortable giving up access to our private keys. And so this is a big kind of difference in that, unlike Web 2, in Web 3, one wrong transaction can drain our wallet. And as a result, there needs to be this historic separation of concerns between the places where we are deciding what we want to do and the places that are trusted enough to actually perform those actions. So by extension, wallets are, extension no pun intended, they're extensions on our browser, they're apps on our phone. Wallets are products, but they're also more broadly a platform for actually evaluating transactions. So they're a trusted environment where we as users look to say, what am I about to sign? Is it safe? And wallets do a lot more than that today as well. There's the user interface layer, what are my balances, switching chains. There's the authentication layer. In the case of most wallets today, this is just my private key, but maybe Face ID is another mechanism that most popular mobile wallets have. And then there's, of course, the transaction-related stuff. So forming a transaction, verifying it, presenting that information to the user, collecting user consent, and then actually going ahead and propagating that confirmed transaction through an RPC to a mempool and finally into a confirmed block. So wallets have evolved quite a bit. At first, as mentioned, we had these standalone wallets like MetaMask, where their job was to be this almost trusted kernel where my seed phrase is held and where every transaction gives me an additional place to say, I as a user explicitly consent to this happening on my wallet. Of course, that has the problem I mentioned, where we now need two apps to do anything. And so there have been two kind of follow-ups from that. The next kind of stage was wallets starting to build in application functionality. So think the Uniswap wallet, think Robinhood DeFi wallet, building up into this space of helping people decide what to do or giving people ideas of what kinds of transactions they might want to do. And then actually streamlining that consent and transaction approval flow within one app. And so then the logical next place was, okay, well, wallets are moving up into functionality. why not have dApps move down into wallet functionality? And so that's what's led to the rise of embedded wallets, where we can, of course, in the context of an app, use something like a social login or an email or a passkey to create a wallet that exists just in the context of that application. With Acts 2 and 3, we streamlined this flow of going from I want to do something to that transaction is now on a chain in one app, but we created a new problem. Instead of now having our one wallet that we take with us everywhere, we now have dozens and dozens of wallets, some of which are held in apps on our phone, some of which are held in kind of browser storage, but in all kinds of different environments. And in general, we've seen this sort of explosion of the number of different places where I now have to sign from. And as a result, the number of places where I hold assets. And then maybe building on that, Act 4, which I'll be talking more about, is the kind of bringing together of both of these concepts. So this notion of an embedded or kind of all-in-one end-to-end integrated app experience where interaction is something that happens in one app and one app alone. But bringing that together with the composability and interoperability that is really one of the main reasons to be leveraging a blockchain infrastructure to begin with. So if we think about the broader Endgame, that's the name of this talk, right? Of the wallet user experience. We basically see that it's the fully abstracted UX and interaction that we're used to with Web 2, where we push buttons, something happens, we're not leaving our flow, we're not scared that something's going to drain our wallet. But along with the portability and verifiability of an on-chain system. And specifically, that means, one, a wallet that I can use in one application, but with the assets that I can access in other places. So think my ENS name, maybe I minted that in an application or bought it, and now I'm using it to register for something else. And then the verifiability of maybe as a user, I'm not inspecting JSON anymore, but I can still verify that the transaction that I wanted to happen has actually happened. And I can do that in an open and public way. So the problems basically between where we're at now in terms of the status quo and there's a couple of them. The first, as I mentioned, we have dozens of wallets, and it's nice, maybe we don't have to manage the seed phrases for all of them, but we do still have dozens of different places where our assets, our NFTs, et cetera, are all sitting. Building onto that, account abstraction is kind of an elephant in the room. It's been a big part of this story. As we've seen the number of chains explode, and we've seen the complexity of transactions explode, account abstraction is something where we're seeing that we'll have to deploy contracts to maybe every chain. And I'll talk a little bit about how that can work together with MPC-based signers as well. And then there's this very, very foundational trade-off of signing a transaction requiring access to a private key. This really bubbles down to, if I want to sign a transaction in 5 places, I need to have my private key in 5 places. And as we know, that security paradigm is challenging because one app that gets hacked is just the end of that wallet's security everywhere. And so this has really led us to a place where we do have some convenience that we've gotten from sharding keys and doing things like being able to sign from a browser or sign from various environments. But if we're not careful, that can happen at the kind of detriment of having private keys exposed in places where they weren't in this original kind of wallet dApp paradigm. So breaking this down, in terms of Web 2 experience, how do we achieve this? This is, as I mentioned, not needing 2 different apps to do a transaction. And this is really, we've made really big strides in this as an industry in the last really year or so with 3 different mechanisms. The first is HSM EOA-based wallets, where you can have a private key that's stored in a remote hardware security module, and you can have the signing interface separated out from that. So the key's still in one place, but you can initiate a transaction against it and have the signing occur within that module. The second is Shamir secret sharing. What Shamir secret sharing does is we generate a private key the way we did before, but then we split it up into a few different shares. And then whenever we do need to sign a transaction, we reconstruct the private key in that environment and sign with it there. As mentioned, this can lead to some cases where we might have a private key in a place where we might not want to, which has some properties that we might not always want. That's where distributed MPC comes in. So with distributed MPC, what we do instead is you have two parties, or n parties really, collaborate to generate a shared signature using zero knowledge, and then, or a shared secret. And then similarly, there's a multi-round distributed signing protocol where these parties can collectively sign a message with that shared secret, in this case, the private key. What's really nice about this is that it prevents the need, as I mentioned earlier, for the private key to be in the same place that the signing is happening, and therefore opens up a pretty large space on the design front of being able to sign transactions from lots of different places without also having the private key in lots of different places. And then this can even be extended to what I'll call programmable MPC. And so because you don't need to have the private key in one place, you can actually kind of insert things like evaluation logic or permissions or other kind of areas where every share may not even have the same privileges. So you can have something like a share that expires through key rotation, and generally speaking, have a notion of programmable signing ability that is tied to individual shares. So what this really does is open up a space where you can have many different applications or many different environments interact with a wallet without actually giving every application the ability to drain a wallet, which is very important. If this sounds familiar, this is a notion that a lot of the account abstraction space has been talking about as well through session keys. And so you can think about session keys very similarly, where you have multiple different signers. They could be MPC signers, EOA signers, really anything that connect to an account abstraction wallet and have some set of on-chain permissions. As I mentioned, with account abstraction, we have the multi-chain fragmentation problem. MPC can help here too. Really, you can have an EOA or MPC signer that connects to wallets across a range of different app chains, rollups, and chains in general. And as a result, even though you have all of the wonderful complexity that you can put on chain through account abstraction, you still have one signer that a user interacts with, and therefore just one unified interface for interacting across any chain. And so from here, we kind of get right back to where we were around what is this endgame? It's our fully abstracted UX, the ease of Web 2, being able to sign transactions from anywhere, with the portability, verifiability, and security considerations that we need to get the best of Web 3, being able to port our assets around and take them with us, and use kind of different protocols as building blocks. And we can achieve that through programmable MPC in conjunction with a lot of these concepts from account abstraction. And then on the right, this is really an example from Capsule and how we do this, where we think about this in a more SSO or single sign-on type of context, where you can have applications with scoped access. You can validate or verify that access through distributed signing. And you can revoke and grant permissions to apps without granting them the ability to access arbitrary information or arbitrary kind of execution ability on the wallet. And so now I'll talk through maybe some of the key features we have. So this is really some features of what we might think of in terms of next set of wallets, and I'll just talk through how we've been doing them at Capsule. So the first is easy user onboarding. This is a non-negotiable. People are looking to interact with everything Web3 has to offer. They're not looking to kind of leave their context and then come back later and generally deal with drop-off. Multi-device. As mentioned, people are on their phones, people are on mobile, people are on desktop, maybe people are in Telegram apps. Being able to sign transactions from anywhere that I can make an API call is another really important property in terms of being able to open up interaction with the blockchain to be as simple as interaction with an API. And then building on that, a notion of multi-chain. So having that extend to not just one chain or one even roll-up ecosystem, but across all of the different chains that people might have activity on. I talked a little bit about programmable signing. This is really the ability to give apps permission to do some things on wallets without giving them a permission to do everything on a wallet. Portability builds on this by saying, in addition to these multiple apps being able to interact with a given wallet, I should be able to take that wallet with me and use it across anywhere that I would want to access the assets that I just used in a given app. And then the kind of last one is around the social login side of things and making it really easy for people to use the social logins that they love, but making it as close to impossible to compromise assets when you compromise the social login. We do this through a combination of social login and passkeys. There's a lot of different mechanisms for this, but generally it's very important that we don't kind of, in this process to make things easier, reduce the security level and guarantees that we're giving on these wallets. And then in general, I feel like the hope for this is really moving towards a place where we have wallets that feel universal in the same way that crypto is universal. So whether it's MetaMask, we launched a collaboration with them recently where you can have a MetaMask Snap that has a Capsule-powered MPC that's the same embedded wallet that you used in your favorite dApp. Whether it's kind of easy modal-like onboarding experiences, and whatever ecosystem they're across. So generally just making it easy to create a wallet anywhere and then take it anywhere that you might need to use those assets along the way. That's really all about Capsule. And so we have a little bit of info there. And then more broadly, I'm super excited to talk to anyone who is in this space of thinking about where wallets are going, MPC, account abstraction, anything in that realm. And so these are some of my social handles. You can come find me later. Thank you. Do we have time for a question?